How long have you played Pokemon Go? 1 year? 2? 5? And do you consider yourself a Pokemon Go OG? Well, if you do, I wonder if you'll remember all of these 10 things that only Pokemon Go OGs would know about. Like the original appraisal system. If you appraise a Pokemon right now in Pokemon Go, it is super simple, super straightforward. But it wasn't always like that. The system before the current one was much more complicated and took some Nicolas Cage level decoding. Basically, your team leader would appraise your Pokemon for you instead of Professor Willow. There would be 4 to 5 different text prompts that they would say, which change depending on the IVs of your Pokemon. Here's an example of what a Team Valor 100% IV Pokemon would look like when appraised. Overall, your Pokemon simply amazes me. It can accomplish anything. Its HP is its strongest feature. I'm just as impressed with its attack. I'm just as impressed with its defense. I'm blown away by its stats. Wow. So instead of just simply seeing your HP, attack, and defense stats like in the modern appraisal system, you had to decode what your team leader was telling you. I definitely do not miss this system. What I do miss is the pure excitement over finding rare wild Pokemon. You see, back in the day, there were no shinies, no community days, really no events. All we had were wild spawns. And some, like Porygon for example, were so rare that if you saw it on your nearby, you got up from what you were doing and sprinted in whatever direction you could to find this thing. Some of the craziest moments in the OG days were wild spawns like Dragonite, Snorlax, Charizard, but even finding a Dratini was exciting. Different times, my friends. Do you remember the Pikachu glitch? It was actually my first ever Pokemon Go video, which currently has like 1.3 million views. Now, technically you could still do this glitch today, but most people don't because, well, you only have one account, unfortunately due to the terms of service. But how it basically works is when you start the game for the first time, you get a choice to catch one of the 3 starters, Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur. But there's an Easter egg that allows you to instead pick Pikachu. All you have to do is walk away from the 3 starters until they despawn and respawn 3 times. Then on the 3rd time, Pikachu will actually spawn alongside the 3 starters. You can then catch Pikachu and have it as your first Pokemon, which I transferred, sadly. Let me know in the comments if you still have your first Pokemon and which one it was. I'm an idiot for transferring that. I still can't believe that to this day. Ugh. Powering up Pokemon today is easy peasy. All you gotta do is click the button, press and hold down until you get to the desired CP limit, and power that sucker up. But back in my day, things weren't that easy. You see, kiddo, your granddad had to go through hell to power up Pokemon. There was no press and hold. Dog, you literally had to power up each Pokemon 1 CP power up at a time. We literally did time-lapse videos of us powering up Pokemon because that's how long it actually took. And it was oddly satisfying to watch. But still so inconvenient. The amount of time that was wasted tapping, powering, tapping, powering, tapping, power, tapping, power. Also inconvenient was the Pokemon fleeing in AR Plus mode. Back in 2017, the AR Plus feature was officially released. And how I remember it, basically there was no way to take an AR Plus photo of your Pokemon unless it was through a wild or during a wild encounter. Obviously we weren't doing it with every spawn, but sometimes you wanted a sick picture of whatever cool rare Pokemon you found in the real world around you, especially when the feature first came out. But encountering Pokemon in AR Plus mode is different. They can flee randomly. Well, not randomly, but basically if you get too close to the Pokemon too quickly, it basically can become afraid and then dip out. So if you were to turn AR Plus mode on in the wrong spot and the Pokemon jumped out too close to you, it could run immediately. And this happened to some pretty sick Pokemon. All of us OGs have our own AR Plus fleeing horror story. Nowadays, you could just pop any Pokemon you want out of your inventory into AR Plus mode, play with it, take a picture, do the thing. But back in the old days, it was risky. Pokemon Go's first loading screen is probably as OG as it gets. Just looking at it brings back memories of summer 16. You got the dude heads down on his phone, walking across the bridge right into the mouth of Gyarados. People even made some sick fan art of this, which looked scary, realistic, but very cool. And over the years, the loading screens have improved heavily. It's actually one of Pokemon Go's most consistently great features, but nothing will beat the feeling of watching the game load up on the OG loading screen back in the first year of release. Speaking of first and Gyarados, what about Pokemon Go's first shiny? In March of 2017, during the first ever Water Festival event, Pokemon Go's debut shiny was released. And it was none other than the snack that smiled back, Shiny Magikarp. Now this was a big deal back in the day because it was the first ever shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Go. And its release would mark the beginning of a new chapter for the game. the shiny era. No longer were rare spawns the coolest thing you could get and the most exciting moments you'll have. It was now all about the shinies. And hunting the first shiny was an actual blast. I got mine personally in Disneyland, and to this day, he's still named the happiest Gyarados on Earth. And if you want to see all the other big Pokemon Go YouTubers catch their first ever shiny Magikarp, I actually made a video reacting to those moments over on the Mystic7 Reacts channel, which is linked in the description. And interestingly enough, back then, only Magikarp could be found shiny in the wild, but you could find Gyarados. Nowadays, both Magikarp and Gyarados can spawn in the wild and can be caught shiny in the wild, although I still have never found a shiny wild Gyarados. I want that. Hatching eggs back in the day used to be a much different experience. Why? They all look the same. In 2016, every egg had the same look, and the only way to tell them apart was by looking at them in your egg inventory. You had no idea what egg you got when you spun one from a stop, and you had no idea what egg was hatching when they hatched. They all looked like today's 2-kilometer eggs, even the 10Ks. It wasn't until months later in October of 2016 when the 5-kilometer and 10-kilometer eggs got their new orange and purple look. And there was one more thing about the OG eggs. Regionals. When the game first launched, you could hatch Tauros, Mr. Mime, Kangaskhan, Farfetch'd from the eggs received in their corresponding regions. But sometime later during the summer of 2016, Pokemon Go just removed the regionals from the egg pool, and they wouldn't return to hatches until September of 2019 during the World Tourism Day event. It's no secret, XP today is really easy to get in Pokemon Go. There's so many double XP events, there's raiding, friendship bonuses, but for us OGs, there was only one tried and true way to grind XP back in the day: evolution. Back before raids, friendship, and consistent events, XP was actually really hard to come by. Getting to level 40 was seen as a massive flex, and something really only the hardcore players achieved. And the best way to get there? Evolving Pokemon. Evolving was the single most efficient way to stack up on XP. The only downside was that it took forever to do. You'd basically go out and catch a bunch of wild Pokemon like Pidgey, which were easy to find, and only required 12 candies to evolve. Then you dropped your lucky egg and just evolved for 30 straight minutes. And at the time, evolving a Pokemon took around 30 seconds, so you could do roughly 60 evolutions in your 30-minute time period with a lucky egg down. Now, evolving gives you 1,000 XP or 2,000 XP with a lucky egg, so by a mass evolving Pokemon for 30 minutes, you could get a whopping 120,000 XP, which was really, really good. And this strategy seems easy because nowadays there are so many Pokemon that spawn in the wild that only require 12 candy to evolve. But back in the day, it was only Pidgey, and XP grinders hunted those little birdies into oblivion. And what would you do with all those leftover Pidgeotto? Mass transfer them to the professor. Easy, right? No! For the first few months of the game, there was no mass transfer feature. You had to manually transfer out each and every single Pokemon that you didn't want. Do you understand how annoying it was to go out and catch 100, 200 Pokemon, then have to just sit in your car for 10, 20 minutes, individually transferring each and every Pokemon you caught? Oh my god. Then in December of 2016, the mass transfer feature was finally added. It was easily one of the best updates we got that entire year, hands down. So next time you finish up a community day and you've got 300 Pokemon to transfer, be thankful that you can just mass transfer them. It's such a nice thing. And those are 10 things only Pokemon Go OGs remember. And if you remembered any of those, leave a like, subscribe, and check out the other videos on screen because you'll like those as well. See you next video. Take care.